Hey there, you guys. Welcome back to some more Hello Lady. In the last episode, we were able to completely kick Tamao's butt. Like, she kept saying that she was going to kick our butt, and then we pretty much wiped the floor with her. And so that was a good introduction, and we met some other people like Taigi, and we actually officially met Soriko, so that was nice. But we're going to go ahead and continue on here. It looks like we're actually taking a class for once. You know, that's always nice. You know, you're here to go to school. It's nice to actually learn something. I calmly introduced myself while under the cautious gaze of many individuals. This was a large tier-based classroom. It was spotless, the temperature was perfect, and the entire area seemed soundproof. Dang, I want this for my setup. Everything visible was modern and cutting edge, exemplifying the Academy's outlook on education. The room had space for over 100 people, and the 50 that were seated were destined to be my first ever school friends. The unknown before me filled me with excitement and joy. Now, it was high time for Shinri Narita to start his school life. After the duel amidst the roses, I was told to take Tamao to Miss Tokino. Tokino Yomase was the top HMI researcher in this school, as well as the mistress sitting at the top of all the lectures. All alone, she was responsible for the health of the students, the unhatched nobles. HMI referred to those with halo functions. Okay, perfect. I'm glad you're explaining that. I feel like they've thrown a lot of stuff at us in this game that we didn't really know what that meant, and they're finally like, oh, we should probably tell you what that is. A halo was a condition for enrolling in the academy, and those whose halo functioned properly were called HMIs. Thus, all students were HMIs. Due to the fact Miss Tokino's space was also the school's medical room, it even had medical technology that would make the most major hospitals pale in comparison. And aside from that, the Academy's grounds also had a research tower with a hospital for students. There was also a recreation center and a few amusement areas. The place had everything, really. It had seemingly been built so that the students would never have to leave this fortress-like zone. Back to the matter at hand. Less than 5 minutes after Saku had contacted her, I spotted Miss Tokino. Of course, regardless of how she truly felt, she didn't show it, and looked completely calm and composed. However, Tamao Akahito was an Etole, one of the most important people in the academy, and considering Tamao Akahito's power, it was unlikely that something would happen to her. It was a given that the news that she'd been hurt shook Miss Tokino to her core. The details would be made clear at a later date, but at the very least it didn't look like her life was in any danger. Soon she returned to the class, while I ended up having to skip on the first one. Missing the first lesson of the first day didn't seem like a good sign, but compared to the potential of that wild girl being hurt, it was no big deal. Gosh, we missed our first lecture, huh? That's not a good way to start off our year. Heck yeah. Number 6, baby. I may be the last one, but I'm the best. Miss Tokino's exaggerated introduction created a wave in the classroom. Interest, surprise, yearning, envy, hostility. It was a tsunami of emotion you wouldn't normally expect from fellow students. The sixth Etole, apparently that fact meant a lot to the people gathered in the classroom. Besides Miss Tokino, everyone in this room was young. Some were clearly as old as me, but most looked a bit younger. Tenkawa Noble Academy had an 8-year system. People my age were generally in year 7. Saku and Soriko Katsuragi were in that year, while Tamao Akahito was in year 6. From what I've heard, the academy was so freshly established that it didn't have a single year 8 student as of yet. When Saku and the others had reached that point, the academy would have its first 8 years. A lot of hopes were riding on their shoulders. Tenkawa Noble Academy had no classes. Every student had their own separate program tailored to their abilities, and they each took lessons based on their curriculums. That's kind of cool. I mean, they kind of can do that with only having 200 students. You can kind of cater it more to them. Feels more like a excuse me, more like a charter school, if you've ever heard of those. Some curriculums could be split based on age and academic ability, but some were combined in this classroom. This was a special class, a moment that could only exist in the academy alone. It was a class about halos, something about physics and whatnot remained in the description, but I didn't remember it. I wasn't proud of it, but I was the type of person who didn't read any descriptions of explanations. I left such trivialities to Hishia, and she handled them so well that I didn't have to bother with them. Yeah, I wish all of us could have a maid. However, my dearest maid was no longer by my side. As the saying goes, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. As such, I decided to simply see what these lessons were like.
それでは成田君は音無さんの隣の席に。
承知した。
Of course, we're sitting next to her. I would expect nothing less. Urged by Miss Tokino, I walked over to my seat. Saku was at the very back, or top. Whatever the case, the classroom incorporated the most cutting-edge AR tech, so being at the very back was no disadvantage. Within the walls of the academy, you had to have your assigned mobile device and the contact lens reality interface on you at all times. The former doubled as student ID, while the latter was needed for the wonders of AR. You can control it with either the mobile device or light gestures. The many sensors installed in the classroom captured all the relevant movements of the students. With just the tip of my finger, I zoomed on the whiteboard and I felt a lot more intuitive than I first expected. According to what Saku had told me on the walk over, there was an unwritten rule that students took seats according to their grades. It was like around the Ganges, where Kshatriyas and Shudras never sat together. The academy students were split into 4 ranks and they all strived to reach higher. You know what this was reminding me of? This was reminding me of Kill la Kill a little bit. You know, with the different star ranks. That's kind of what this is reminding me of a little bit. I mean, I know there's a lot of media that does stuff like that, but I don't know. I just think of Kill la Kill because I like it. The very back of the classroom was reserved to the 6 etoles, the ones who reigned at the very top of the 200 students. Tamao Akihito was sitting in the seat near Saku's. I wonder if there's a ranking between these 6. They haven't really said that. And then again, we haven't even really officially met all the 6 people yet. Well, okay, we've met ourselves. We haven't met the other 5 yet. All of them officially. When our eyes met, she looked like she didn't want to look me in the eye. However, I was simply glad to see that she didn't seem hurt. Well, I mean, you kind of messed her up pretty bad. Next to Tamao, there was a girl whose head was a bit low. The fact that she sat made her look even smaller. Okay, I was a little confused by where that sentence was going. From what I could tell, she was 3 or 4 years younger than us. Yeah, she looks like she's like 9. Her gaze was so sharp that I felt like it would stab me. She might have been merely wary of the unknown man before, but there was too much hostility for that. I mean, she probably heard what you did to Tamao. I mean, she probably didn't like that very much. I tried looking back at her, but she didn't waver at all. She looked directly at me without even flinching. Impressive for someone so young. If I had to compare her to something, I would have said she was a dagger. Small, sharp, hard, and bright. She would strike quick and end things in an instant. It was a familiar light. As I mused over such thoughts, I suddenly realized who she reminded me of. Every lolly. She was a lot like Saku, not in appearance but the aura about her. They were both akin to highly strung bows. Her seat already made it obvious, but she was an Etole grade HMI. She was the youngest of the Etoles, and if my intuition was correct, she was Saku's little knight. Beyond them there was Sorako Katsuragi, sitting there like a small flower. Our eyes met and she waved at me. The friendly reaction made me smile. Saku, Tamao, the school had many unique maidens, and in all honesty I wondered how to best deal with them. Among them, the presence of someone as friendly and honest as Sorako was extremely appreciated. In past Sorako, there was one last one. Long, glamorous hair, and a graceful appearance reminiscent of Japanese dolls. She covered her mouth with the open fan in hand and didn't even try to hide her curious eyes, which were directed right at me. They didn't contain the strong will that Saku's had, nor the hostile strength that Tamao and the little knights had. It was a lucid gaze that had both the sharpness to pick out the most minute details and the strength to see through all falsehood. I felt both strong composure and profound intelligence in her. She was definitely an interesting character. If I had to compare her to something, I would have said she was an autumn bellflower, small and clear yet strong enough to bloom alone and proud without depending on anyone. After passing the 4 girls, I arrived at the seat by Saku's side. She made a complicated expression on her face, but said nothing. Apparently the classroom was an exception to the shooting if you're within 3 meters rule. I appreciated the consideration. I'd been troubled by where I was to say otherwise. It was time to open the curtains on my exciting school life. Hey, at least she calls us a man, okay? She doesn't say like a boy like him. We're a man.
スクールが目指しているのは人類の最先端です。
Oh gosh. She seems like one of the scientists that would be trying to recreate dinosaurs or something, and saying, yes, this is the key to like moving us forward as a race. We're gonna create dinosaurs that'll eat everybody.
21世紀の現在、人類は多くの問題を抱えています。前回の大戦からすでに半世紀以上、当時開発された社会制度は構造疲弊し、打開策もなく矛盾を露呈しています。民族主義、貨幣制度、自由主義の名のもとに行われる搾取、先進国の少子高齢化と新興国の爆発的人口増加、ネットワークの発達とそれに伴う世界全域での高速化とフラット化、インドやアフリカなど新興国の経済発展は爆発的に加速している一方、先進国の経済状況は圧迫され、かつて豊かだった国々に深刻な社会不安が出現しています。
Standing before the screen, Miss Tokino began the lesson. In the academy, teachers were generally called masters, and she who was above them all was called the mistress. She was actually the second in command after the chairman, otherwise called the president. Her lab coat made her seem like a hard-to-approach beauty, and most normal people would feel overwhelmed by her. However, her confidence as a teacher made her mannerisms feel strangely gentle. This was my first time touching on academics as a student. Before I'd left Japan, when I was young, I was a part of a family with a wellspring of history behind it. I lived in a mansion so large you could get lost in it, and all my teaching came from certain members of the family. I had no school friends, no seniors or juniors. In all honesty, sitting here in a classroom and learning alongside others was so moving that I didn't quite know how to describe the feeling.
技術革新がもたらした新資源の確保で、20世紀に信じられていた燃料枯渇による危機的状況こそ回避しましたが、水や植物などより根源的、根本的な資源の不足という新しい問題がもたらされてもいるのです。我々は前世紀には誰も予想しなかった形でアポカリプスナウを迎えようとしていると言えます。
I was legitimately interested in the content of the lesson and what the Academy's goals were. Teaching was more or less brainwashing, or in more polite terms, imprinting. People weren't equal. An animal's nature was influenced by its surroundings. A creature in a cold climate would eventually grow accustomed to it, and so would one in the desert. The tendency built up over time would then be genetically passed on to the next generation, either by something as major as the current culture and trends of the times, or by something as minor as the state of their family. Mankind would adjust to their environment and evolve differently despite all the similarities. And there were also things that differentiated people more than anything of the flesh. Memes. Yes, we're finally getting into the real stuff here. We're talking about humanity's evolution. And if we're going to start with humanity's evolution, memes, okay? Memes have evolved us way beyond what we thought we could be. You know, memes are a part of our everyday life, and it makes life more enjoyable. Therefore, we become more creative. They were basically the genes of culture. Roughly speaking, memes were information, and so were text and films. Memes were etched on the mind rather than the flesh, and they represented the things that people saw, thought, and felt. It was fair to say that a person was a sum of all such things. Education was an effective method of transmitting memes, since young impressionable minds were so open to them that they could even influence their entire lives. And if you live in the US, I feel like memes influence our presidential elections. What was the Academy's ideal? What kind of people were they trying to create? The answer to that question was also the deepest desire of the chairman of the school, Kurofune Mikado. Of course, I would be interested.
人類は真のノーブルを必要としているのです。ここで学んだあなた方がやがて人々の範となり、人類社会の停滞と限界を打ち破り、新たな未来をもたらすものとなることを私たちは願ってやみません。
I don't know, it sounds like they're creating like superhumans here, because apparently they can make you go faster than you're physically able to. Tokino Yomasei's words had no hint of falsehood. Her eyes showed unwavering resolution. It was something you would never see on someone who doubted themselves. She gonna start saying noblesse oblige? Her sonorous prayer got a response from the students. Gosh, this sounds like some indoctrination like he was talking about. As Miss Tokino looked back at the screen, she furrowed her brow and gazed at the corner of the room. There was one person who didn't sing the Academy's venerable ideal and raised his hand in question. Is it me? Yeah, it's me. Yeah. The outcast made the classroom fall silent and wait for whatever happened next.
質問ですか、成田君。
構わないのかね、時の女子。ならばその心遣いに甘えよう。今の説明だが、いささか抽象的すぎないだろうか。この学園に着いたばかりの身としては、補足を願いたいものだ。
We got Narita back here with 200 IQ. He's like, hey, this is a little vague. I need more information here, okay? The perceived problem child's unexpectedly logical answer made the teacher nod in
そうです
agreement.
ね。ちょうどいい機会です。本日の講義はこれまでの復習を兼ねて、ハローの意義について述べることにしましょう。
Okay, I would like that. Just for me as a viewer.
小うるさい転校生です。
Hey! You be nice. You don't even know me yet. You can't say I'm annoying until you've at least talked to me first. And then you can say what you will. Because it's probably true.
マジでうるさい野郎だよ。おまけに。とにかくムカつく。
Hey, I already whooped your butt once. Don't make me do it again.
力だけキャラで単純で一番手のくせに完璧に負けて帰ってくるとは。玉尾、まさに四天王一番の小物。
You frickin' tell her, Eru. I like you already. But why is it the Elite Four? There's 6 of us, you frick.
俺は負けてねえ。それと4人じゃなくて5人だろ。
Hey, there is 6. You're still wrong.
下級生に人気のヤンキーお姉様がハローまで使ってボロ負けした挙句、囚人監視の中、お姫様抱っこで廊下を医務室まで運ばれていくとか。どんな
She's spitting
数値
facts,
プレイ
though.
ですか。
These are big facts.
自分ならマジ一生もののトラウマ。講義とか出てくるの無理無理で残る余生はヒッキーですね。
Frickin', you already look like a shut-in to me. I mean, you just need to play the part.
いやー、言うなー。ちくしょー。成田の野郎。こんな屈辱、生まれて初めて。しかも俺のね、あんなことしやがって。おまけに俺の美乳捕まえて薄いとか。
I just love that they're having this conversation while the classroom is... while we're in session right now. They're just having their own conversation.
絶対に許さねえ。殺す。絶対俺の怒りを思い知らせてやる。赤人さん、授業中ですよ。
Yeah, Miss Tokino, you should have said something earlier. They're just sitting back here talking about how much they hate me. Like, what the frick?
あ、はい。すみません。間抜けです。
Yeah, hey, you were talking too. Don't even say anything.
せ、黙ってろ。負けてねえから。全力で必殺技かましに行ってカウンターで大撃沈された。
Yeah, I wrecked your crap, okay?
そらこ、エルには言うなって約束したのに。でも仲間外れにしたらかわいそうだよ。
Good girl, Sorika.
俺がかわいそうになるんだよ。くそくそ。貴様調子悪かったな。もう一回やりゃあんな野郎に。
Wasn't even close, baby. Like, don't say the second chance. Like, there will be no second chance.
言い訳まで一番の小物っぽい。
Whew, just like your chest. Oh, got him.
余計なことばっかり言いやがんのはこの口か。ほら、待ってやら。おい、こう意地悪な大物め。ああ、やいはいふ。抵抗しやがって。この豆女が。
You know, I'm starting to respect Eru more and more, as I get to know her. And they're just sitting here fighting in the back of the classroom. Yeah, throw a book at him. Throw a book at her.
すみません。
Frickin' Tamao, get out of here. Interrupting my class time.
二人とも声大きいから。
Sorika, the voice of reason.
調子が悪かったにせよ、新参の彼に敗北したのは事実ではありませんの？
それは。しかもお姫様抱っこ。
Hey, some girls would be okay with that. They would actually like that. So don't be complaining. Don't make fun of her for it.
負けは負けなのです、玉尾。
そこまで言うならいっそお前がやってみたらどうなんだよ。
I would love to see her try.
自分、玉尾と違って転校生というだけで喧嘩を売って無益な争いとかしない主義なので。みとりか空子がやり合った時の勝負を盗み見てデータを揃え万全を期して着点を狙って背後から一撃必殺です。
Okay, fair enough. You know, it'd be nice to, like, I guess, use some intelligence. I mean, that's pretty much how we won, is we just used our knowledge
うわ卑怯くせえ。
of physics, apparently.
でも玉緒ちゃん、学園で一番強いよね。まさにそれですわ。少なくとも接近戦での玉緒さんは間違いなくスクール最強。それが敗れたとなると。
Well, I mean, to be fair, Narita said the reason she lost is because she should have fought him up close and not given him time to react. And she, like, ran back and then charged at him, which gave him time to counter it.
意義あり意義あり意義あり。ブレないか。
学園の秩序を担うクラウンとしてこれは看過できない由々しき事態。みとりちゃん、何もそんな大げさな。
Honestly, though, I want to know how strong Soriko is. If she's one of the crowns, then she's got to be pretty strong, right? Or pretty smart, or pretty something. And she seems like the most innocent person in the whole world.
大げさではありませんわ。それにこのままですと筆頭の手を煩わせることになりかねませんわよ。
About that, we already did that. We already troubled her a little bit. You know, yeah.
それは
I don't need to explain it.
ところでその成田ですが、どうしてサクの隣に座っているのですか？
転校生が慣れるまではサクがエスコートするんだと。
どうして？
エルちゃん、声大きい。また怒られるよ。
どうせ時の先生の指示だろ。
成田くんエトワールだからエスコートは私たちの誰かじゃないと釣り合いが取れないし。
許せない。さあ、玉尾、再戦です。
Oh,
今度こそぶっ殺しましょう。
what? I'm just sitting here. I'm not even saying anything. Why are you guys trying to bully me? I'm just sitting here. Well, I understand why you'd want to bully me. I mean, I did, you know, Narita did some pretty unexcusable stuff. I'm literally just sitting here. I'm just chilling.
それでは
Yeah, okay, thank you. And she still is trying to teach this class, and they're just sitting here fighting. Tokino stood before the screen again. The class had been on hold while she prepared has resumed at last. Oh, okay, she was preparing something. Okay, perfect. Like, I thought they were just sitting here interrupting the class this whole time. Having prepared the new lesson, Miss Tokino lightly waved her hand, making a certain person's photo and documentation appear in everyone's vision.
ハローとは未だ現れざる眠れる可能性の発露、あり方の具象。ここで言う可能性とは単なる才能や将来性ではありません。それは拡張されていく人類の可能性の先取り、来るべき未来の最先端です。この眠れる神に現在の時間軸上の3次元空間で現象を引き起こすに至る確固とした具象を与えられるものを HMI と呼びます。
I'll say this game also reminds me a little bit of Charlotte, if you've ever watched Charlotte. I don't know if there's a visual novel for it, but like kind of in Charlotte, like only like these really young like teenagers have these powers. By the time they get to adulthood, they kind of lose them. Like that's kind of what it reminds me of, because I'm assuming that adults in this don't have this power that they're talking about, the halos, because we haven't really seen an example of that yet. It seems like it's only kids, and it's a very limited amount because there's only like 200 of them, or at least the ones that can control it, because they've implied that there's ones who can't control it, like the one we saw on the bridge. I think that's kind of what we're going for right here, something like
極
that.
めて強力な HMI には時間の底あるいは跳躍としか思われない現象を引き起こす例も確認されています。
Jumping through the flow of time, that sounds dope.
すなわち人類の眠れる神にとっては時間すら絶対の規範にはなり得ない。我々は 不可能を恐れてはなら
What
な
it,
い
what
の
it,
です。
wow. I love when people say that in Japanese. It's so cool. I don't
皆さん
know
が
what
ご
word
承
that
知の
is,
よう
but
にハローが正常に機能している人間 HMI であることはスクールへの入学資格です。また本学園で実施されている講義にはハローの開発支援も含まれています。
I like how they pronounce it hollow. Hollow development support.
このハローという名称は桂木さん
It comes from Katsuragi? No, it's kidding. I know what they're talking about.
はい。ハローあるいはハローエボリューションは英国のウィルソン・シェイクスピア教授が命名しました。
Shakespeare?
結構です。桂木さんの話にもあったウィルソン・シェイクスピア教授はハロー研究の父と呼ばれている方です。ハローの研究そのものは古くから行われてきましたが本格的に進んだのは冷戦時代以降。ハローが引き起こす現象は一般の物理法則や量子力学にとらわれない振る舞いをする第三の物理です。古くはいわゆる超能力などとひとまとめにされていた時期もあります。
Okay. I mean, I'm a little confused because obviously this isn't a real thing, so I'm having to like adapt to it. But okay, I see what you're
シェイ
saying.
クスピア論文はそれまで異能、超能力などと呼ばれてきたものの中に遺伝的性質を備えたものが含まれていることを明らかにしました。
I feel like you could sum it up. The people that have halos or superpowers or whatever, they're built different. I think that's the word you'd want to use. If we're going to use like a meme word, they're built different, okay?
このようにハローと名付けられたものといわゆる超能力と認識されるものの違いとは。音無さん。
超能力とは突然変異的に出現するものです。それは本来人類が主として持ち合わせる必要のないあるいは切り捨ててきた可能性だからです。
Why would you want to get rid of a superpower? What?
一代限りの変種で例外を除いて遺伝することはありません。それら超能力者はあくまでも世界に対する遺伝です。
Are they implying that you could like have two halos make a child together and like it could inherit that power then versus a superpower which is kind of like a mutation that's only like a one-off thing. It's just kind of like a chance.
未来の可能性の発露であるハローは遺伝し、子孫にも同様の機能を持つものが高い確率で発生します。
Interesting. Okay.
結構です。それまで HMI でなかったものが何かのきっかけで後天的にハローを発現させる。つまりアセンションを起こすこともあります。
Dang, an ascension. That sounds cool. Like I'm going to like Super Saiyan level.
その場合も以後の血統には高い確率でハローの因子が遺伝するのです。 HMI とは可能性の開拓者、人類の最先端。
Well, I mean, is an HMI something that you could potentially replicate? It sounds like this is also something that just kind of happens by chance.
あなた方は70億のトップランナーなのです。自信を持ちなさい。胸を張りなさい。
Tokino Yomasei's words permeated the classroom. It was a delicate zeal for the future, quite unlike the passionate one from before. As everyone began to dream and hope, I raised my hand once more.
良いかね。
質問ですか、成田君。
このスクールでは力のあるなしが資格のあるなしなのかね。
先ほども説明したように、ハローの概念とは人類の可能性の拡張です。
It also reminds me a little bit of Danganronpa. I'll say that too. It reminds me of a lot of things.
選択されていない可能性はどれも等しく価値を持ちます。故に HMI は例外なくノーブルたり得るのです。
So like, does everyone have like a specific thing? Like Tamao's is that she can go really fast and that technically makes her really strong? So she's pretty much like Sonic, right? But like, does everyone have their own different thing? And if you have something, can you have something else, or can you develop it to become more than what it is? Like, I'm
や
still
がて
lost
あ
in
な
that.
た方の提示するハローのいくつかが人類の停滞を打ち破り、未踏へ導くでしょう。
I guess what I'm asking for is I want some examples of how that works rather than you just kind of explaining what it is, I
ス
guess.
クールは人類世界のフロントライン。その理念のもと、帝理事長はこの学園を設立されました。
I don't know. I don't know if like it's just her character or the way they're explaining it is just, I don't know. I guess I learn more by seeing than just reading about it. A straight, honest gaze. Everyone present listened intently. I mean, I'm very interested in it. I want to see more about what she's talking about. What person it has a halo, and how do you tell, and like what does it do for them essentially? Obviously, it's like some potential, and it's kind of closely related to superpowers, but not just a one-off thing. There was no denying that she spoke of grand ideals.
私はこの場の皆さんが真の開拓者たり得ると信じています。そして開拓者には苦難がつきものです。世界とは変化を恐れ、新たなものを拒む性質があります。社会のシステムは多くの適性のない人々に舵取りを委ねがちです。それがあまりに大きな不幸を生むことは改めて述べるまでもないでしょう。
Objectively speaking, Tokino Yomase had a point. Foolish kings, greedy tyrants, violent despots, elites absorbed only in protecting themselves and their interests, bureaucrats corrupt to the core. You don't need to know much about history to understand how much society suffered under people unfit to be
ス
kings.
クールは開拓者たちに世界と向き合う強さを与えるための場でもあります。圧力に、差別に、嫉妬に、我欲に、堕落に、もろもろの世界の壁を打倒し、多くの人々の未来を照らす灯火たらん。それこそがスクールの目指す輝ける真のノーブル。人々を導く資格を持つ開拓者。
So this is essentially a school to create like the top at the top. Like this is to make like leaders and kings and people who are going to go places that humanity's never gone before. I think that's essentially what she's saying.
開拓者は世界に敗れてはなりません。救いを待つ罪なき人々を先導しなければなりません。
I think a good example of this would probably be Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was notorious for his belief that people don't know what they want. Like consumers don't know what they want. It's up to the company to find out what they want and give it to them before they know it, you know? Like you're trying to create a product that people are going to enjoy that they don't know that they want. It's essentially what I'm hearing. But like pioneers are people who have done things that nobody else has done before. They're leading the way essentially. And I think this whole academy, that's their goal, is to like lead the way for others to follow.
まるで革命でも起こしかねない塩梅だな。
Interesting observation. I'll accept that. I wonder what she's going to say to that.
社会を力で変えようとする試みは、さらなる混乱と流血と不幸を生むだけだ
That is
と
true.
歴史は教えていますよ。
This is facts.
しかりだ。革命とは100年後のために現在を破壊し尽くそうという決意そのものだ。
Since only the future was considered, all that happened in the present was destruction. Thus, the attempts to destroy the old by force and rebuild it was all nightmarish comedy at best. The French and Russian revolutions were no exception. It was up to those who had come after to decide whether they had some sort of meaning or if they were just transient frenzies of the era.
我々はノーブルに足る人間を創造するのです。資格ある者に弱きを救い、過ちを正し、世界を変える真のノーブルたれと鍛えるのです。
So I kind of mentioned the word earlier, but if you've heard of noblesse oblige, it's French, and it kind of means nobility obliges. So like those in power have the obligation to serve those who are below them, you know, or those that they have, I guess, power over. I mean, I'm sure that I could explain that better, but that's kind of, I feel like what she's trying to say is like, hey, we're going to make you into leaders, and then you're going to have this obligation to be noble and to take care of people, you know, because you guys have powers or whatever that make you a little bit different than everyone else.
10年後スクールを巣立っていったノーブルたちが社会の担い手となった時、世界は変わるでしょう。
Yeah, and she's going to essentially like say like, hey, you guys are going to change the world. Maybe kind of like a revolution, but you know, it's going to be a little bit different. It's not going to lead to like destruction, I guess, like a lot of past revolutions did.
高尚な理念だ。疑いなく美しいものであると認めよ
I don't know, is Narita going to say this was full of crap though?
う。ただ、私は賛同しかねるがね。
Alright, Narita. Okay, good. I thought you would go this way, and that's kind of the way I was going with.
ちょっとこいつ何を
Because I feel like they're trying to artificially introduce like a different way of life for people. Like they're trying to do it without like they're trying to do it like with pathism. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Truly, they took those who had the ability to force change and provided them with the wisdom and power to do it. It was definitely a noble ideal and a solid solution. But yeah, it's like, is it actually gonna like come to fruition? It was truly beautiful. Some people undoubtedly had a different outlook on life, but there was no real room for any argument. That was exactly why Shinri Narita wouldn't obey the school's ideal no matter what. A light so enchantingly bright came with an extremely dense shadow, and so I'd placed myself where I belonged. There was a clarity in my heart akin to that of a cloudless sky. I was surely laughing. Miss Tokino furrowed her brow. However, it wasn't a mere show of anger due to the rebellious student, but a question. Why was that man laughing?
はっきりと言うのですね、成田君。
変化を恐れるな。とある男の遺言だ。腹立たしい男だったが、この遺言には眼蓄がある。
それは我々の理念でもあります。
Indeed, there was a minor difference, however. But to Shinri Narita, that difference was significant enough to make him unwilling to understand or agree to the school's principles. There wasn't even a reason to hesitate anymore.
私は意志を重んじる人間だ。自分のものであれ、他の誰かのものである。意志とは至極の宝石だ。人は自らの意志で挑まねばならない。停滞に、怠惰に、不幸に、理不尽に、罪と罰にだ。この学園は突き詰めれば優れた者に意志を任せるべきだという。それでは私とは相入れない。
I wouldn't accept it no matter how peaceful and beautiful this world was.
相入れないのであれば、あなたはどうすると
I think he's trying to say like, hey, if I'm gonna be a leader, I shouldn't conform to your ideals. That's not what makes a leader a leader. A leader is someone who goes and does, you know, kind of similar to like a pioneer who goes out and does something first and leads the way. Like a leader is somebody who makes decisions without like, I guess kind of similar to what she's saying. Like you're kind of pioneering a way or leading the way and doing things differently than the world thinks. And I guess he's kind of like fulfilling that in a weird way. It's kind of interesting. He's kind of doing what they're telling them to do, but I guess like in a way he's doing it to rebel against them, not to conform to them.
世は移ろいゆく。世界には相入れぬものが満ちている。私はそれを認め、めでるもの。
Thus,
夜店時の。私は意志の名のもとになすべきをなし。この学園に変化をもたらすだろう。
she seemed baffled, unable to understand the meaning of my challenging gaze. Thus, the peaceful prologue came to an end. The curtains on Shinri Narita's journey had lifted at long last.
これは少々困ったことになりましたわね。
Interesting. That was a cool conversation. A lot to think about. I'm sorry if I'm like talking too much while you guys are like trying to read. I just find it very interesting. I like talking about ideals and revolutions. That's cool.
どこへ行くのだね。サク、君と同行するのはやぶさかではないが、理由の説明くらいは求めたい。
After Miss Tokino's lesson ended, Saku forcefully dragged me out of the classroom.
寝言はいいからさっさと来い。
Maybe she's pissed at us for like saying as much as we did. She's like, shut up, I'm trying to listen to this class. We walked through the hallway, then went outside, then headed to the large staircase in the structure next to the main school building. Our beloved leader looked at me like she was about to bite my head off, like an ogre from fairy tales.
あなた、成田真理。転校初日。それどころか、まだ半日も経っていないのに、よくもこれだけ次から次に問題を引き起こせるわね。
私の些細な反応にも気を配っているのだね。
好意を持っているような言い方はやめて。導火線に火のついた爆弾が近くあれば、誰だって注意深くなるわ。
Hey, you know what? Screw you, because you're saying you're hating on us because we're different and we're trying to be unique, and you guys are all trying to conform to one thing.
玉尾はそこまで荒っぽいのだろうか。私の見る限り、意外に少年は素直そうに思うのだが。
鏡を見なさい。それと、口が裂けても今のセリフを玉尾の前では言わないように。
I like how she's acting like Tamao's a threat to us after we just whooped her butt today. You're funny. You're funny, Sokka. You were there. You should have seen it too. You should know better than anybody else that we can beat her in a fight. She placed her hand on her temple, took a deep breath, and made that noble face I'd grown accustomed to last night.
何を考えているんですか？
私のことを知りたいのかね。
知りたくありませんが、知るしかありませんという時と場合と状況です。
いいとも。そのように申し出られては赤裸々に余すことなく
服を脱ぐな。
Whoa, 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 my guy. You've gotten yourself into enough trouble. Like, don't be doing this. Now, I'm okay with you being unique and doing your own thing and being your own person, you know, but you don't need to do that. Nobody wants to see that, okay? Sagu's roar made some passing students look at us in surprise.
スクールのエトワールともあろうものが廊下で突然叫び出すのはいささか恥ずかしいのではないかね。
Gosh, Narita, you're such a troll.
ああ、もうなんでこいつはこんななんだろう。この感情が殺意。ああ、そうかもしれない。私生まれて初めてマジこいつ埋めたいと思ってる。はっきり言ってバカ？それともアホ？どっちでもいいけど、エスコートしなくちゃならない私はどうなるの？
She leaned against the wall, then made a fist and said, "Do your best, Saku," over and over. Was she stressed? Oh, I don't know. Nothing could give me that impression.
今度ストレス発散に効果のある呼吸法を教えよう。精神の安定に役に立つ。
Dang, she's gonna become a demon slayer right now.
とにかく本題に。さっきはどうしてあんなことを？
Back there, she probably meant my exchange with Miss Tokino. After that, I felt hostility from all corners of the classroom. It seemed akin to being a pincushion.
私は自分の思うところを述べたまでだと思う。このスクールの趣旨は理解した。方針については賛同できない。
Gosh,
何の問題が？
I'm just imagining the freaking troll face that says problem.
大ありだわ。転校初日から学園のやり方に従えないとか、それもあんな堂々とまるで喧嘩でも売るみたいに大声で宣言する人がどこにいますか？
Hey, there's nothing problem with questioning things, okay? That's a good trait to have.
君の目の前にいるだろう。
そうね、確かにそうね。あなたにはわからないんでしょうね。回廊で話した時は私の方もよく理解できなかったけれど、今はあなたがわからない人間だっていうのがよくわかってきたわ。
She straightened her posture and raised her head higher. That was enough for her to regain her refined strength.
私たちは皆スクールの目指すところに賛同しています。そのためにここで学んでいるのですから。
Hey, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know what those goals were before I got to school. I didn't even know what a halo was.
あなたの個人的な主義主張はともかく、それをことさら振りかざして学園の方針を正面から否定するあなたの行動はいたずらに輪を乱す行為です。
You wanna pick a fight with me too? I'll win.
学園の秩序に責任を持つクラウンの一員として私はそれを看過することはできません。
I mean, to be fair, I'm a crown too, so you can go ahead and stuff your crown up your butt. She sighed as if completely fatigued, then relaxed a bit and looked at
そう
me.
でなくてもあなたは目立つのに。あなた 時の先生はともかく間違いなく教室にいた子たちの怒りを買ったわよ。
Well, screw him. I'll fight them all.
自らの行いで買う怒りであれば、私はその全てを甘んじて引き受けるとも。
Good, Narita. You know, you have your moments where I hate you, and then you have moments where I really deeply respect you. I like him as a main character. So different than a lot of, you know, just wimps.
ああ、もうなんて話の通じない。とにかくお願いだから、せめて今日はもうおとなしくしていて。今度騒ぎを起こしたら本当にどうなっても知らないわよ。
真摯な意見は心に留めておこう。
それから放課後は学園を案内してあげるから、時間を空けておいて。
承知した。重ね重ね君の心遣いに。
私はあなたのエスコートパートナーの任命を受けました。転入したばかりのあなたに手を貸すのは私の役割。感謝は不要です。
役割であろうとなかろうと、恩義には感謝で報いるべきだ。
My honest answer elicited a strange look from Saku.
あなたミスター身勝手人間なのに、そういうところは頑固なぐらい生真面目なのね。
誰しも自分一人で生きているわけではない。感謝とは人のあるべき形の一つだろう。
そう思ってるなら少しは空気を読みなさい。
それと自分の意志を貫くことはまた別の問題だ。君ともあろうものが混同してはいけないな。
あなたってまったく。まあいいでしょう。では放課後に。
その前に質問をいいかね。
Saku turned to face me, but she clearly did not want to continue our conversation. It was nothing major, but I felt I needed to ask my question anyways.
学生たちは皆学園の趣旨に賛同していると言っていたが。
ええ、当然でしょ。
君もかね。おとなしさく。
もちろんよ。
A brief, instant answer. I wonder why he asked that. I wonder if he feels like maybe she doesn't. After my first day of lessons concluded, I walked around the academy alongside Saku. Tenkawa Noble Academy was located on a hilly area outside Okushima. The 21st century buildings had a verdant forest behind them, but it still didn't seem in harmony with nature. It did look rather modern, however. Chairman Kurofune Mikado had a way with words which allowed him to get many corporations and foundations to fund the school. In a way, connections were the most important resource a person could have, since resources determined a person's worth. A high-quality person like the nobles this school aimed to create was worth as much as uranium or diamonds.
私たちが授業で使っているここは第一校舎。隣にあるのが図書館や体育館の入っている施設と、それからずっと北にある施設が研究棟。
Besides teachers, the academy also housed many individuals working on HMI research. Like the students, the chairman and most of the researchers lived on
研
campus.
究棟には一般の学生は入れないので、不用意に近づかないように。ゲートの管理が厳しいので、こっぴどく怒られることになります。
Yeah, I definitely want to go there. That sounds fun.
間違ってもそんなことはないと思いますが、念のために確認しておきます。成田くん、
Did I let my emotions show on my face? How careless of me. I shouldn't make my guide worry any more than
ど
necessary.
ちらかといえばサクの方が不機嫌そうに見えるんだが、私は不機嫌なわけではないよ。そうだな、少しばかり残念だとは思っているがね。
記念すべき学園生活初日に何か問題でもというよりも、問題なら自分でたくさん引き起こしていたでしょうに、今更何を。
The problem Saku had in mind meant little to me. The problem was completely
実
different.
はそれらしい手順を踏むのかと楽しみにしていた。
それらしい手順というと、
スクールではハローの開発も行っているという。とするといろいろありそうではないかね。そう、例えば伏せたカードの絵柄を裏返しのまま当てるとか。
何ですかそれは。
She looked thoroughly unimpressed.
知らないのかね。冷戦時代の米ソで能力開発の一環に行われた古式ゆかしいメソッドなのだよ。
超能力とハローを一緒くたにされても困ります。もちろんあなたのハローがそういった機能なら今後似たような訓練を受けるかもしれませんが。
According to Saku, halos were split into types that had set names. For example, Tamao's was the Tempest Fourth. The Tempest meant it was a physical area type, while 4 represented the function. And Etole was the grade of halos like mine and Saku's. There was 4 levels of strength: Corfi, Solist, Premier, and Etole. HMIs of Etole grade were so rare that there was only 6 in the entire school. That made us more precious than diamonds.
成田君、時々レトロな話をするのね。
She sighed and relaxed, not quite sure what to think. It was rare for her to display such a carefree smile. At first I thought of her as a sword, but when she smiled, she looked like a true maiden befitting her age.
いい機会だから説明しておきますが、スクールでは大まかに3つのカリキュラムがあります。外の教育機関と同じ学科である一般講義、それから帝理事長の理念に基づいた人間教育プログラムノーブル。
いわゆる帝王学といったところかね。
ええ、その解釈で合っています。そして3つ目がハローの開発訓練にあたるコレオグラフ。ハローは安定しないうちは心理的影響を受けやすい繊細なものです。ですからコレオグラフの講義は慎重に行われています。
サクもハローを持つのだろう。
それはもちろん、でなければスクールの入学資格を得られません。でも詳しいことは答えられません。原則学生間で自分のハローについて教えるのは禁止されていますから。
Well, that sucks for Tamao.
それも開発支援の一環、思考の瞬発力の訓練というわけか。わずかな手がかりを集めて正解を導き出す。
そうですね。
Interesting. Okay. So it's part of our training, I guess, to figure out what each person has. The school grounds were vast, and so it wasn't all that strange for a girl leading someone around the area for half a day to grow fatigued. The time we had after school was short, so Saku focused on the most relevant places, like the first school building and student living spaces.
ともあれ、刺激的な一日だったよ。
あなたでもそんな感想を？
Yeah, you did. She appeared rather surprised. How rude. I had a sensitive heart and loved to wallow in
こ
sentiment.
こは物珍しいものばかりだよ。教室、授業、講師と学生、賑やかな廊下。君に私の胸を開いて見せてやれればいいのだが、この紅葉を伝える術がないのが嘆かわしい。
そんなの別に普通の学園でも。
It looked like she'd realized she made a
気
mistake.
にする必要はないとも。私は残念ながら普通の学園生活というものには縁遠い生き方をしてきた。
その成田君、
どうかしたのかね、サク。
She looked down for a moment. The evening sun shone on the side of her face. She tried to tell me something, but realized it would come off as mere pity and sympathy. No matter how sad or cruel my life had appeared to other people, I was the only one with the right to lament it. And though I could never say that those days were fun, I acknowledged them as days that made me who I was, so there was no need to grieve. Saku understood that and didn't speak another word. If I didn't bother to mourn those days, her sympathy would only be belittling. Saku Otonashi was one who understood that far too well. Here's what her backstory was. Therefore, what made her smile was something
今
else.
更だけど、あなたに呼び捨てにされるのはおかしな気分。
ファミリーネームの方がいいのかね。
構いません。あなたは海外が長かったんでしょ。名前で呼ぶ方が慣れているでしょうし。
This is some interesting character development. We're actually like getting closer to Saku, which we didn't really have we had mixed feelings about our first meeting. Let's just say that. Interesting. She's actually like getting along with us now.
配慮を感謝する。
You know, that's always nice.
もしよかったら、ここへ来る前、 どこにいたのかぐらい教えて。
興味があるかね。
まあ犬の出身地を調べてみようかな程度には。
Hey, I mean, I'm always interested in to find out where animals like originally came from.
そうまで求められれば語らぬわけにもいくまい。私が日本を出たのはまだ幼い頃だ。その後さまざまな土地や国を転々とした。ロシア、アフリカ、中央アジア、インド、相当に危ういところもあったとも。
I had no idea what she imagined, but Saku furrowed her brow.
どうやら不死だらな想像をしたようだね。
してない。
Is that an explosion?
陰微な妄想にふける優等生というのも雅だが、しかし学生の身としてはふさわしくない。学び屋の勉学なるものも貴重な時間。
していないというに。まったくあなたと付き合っているととても疲れるわ。
I don't know. I feel like Narita gets that a lot.
付き合っているのかね。素晴らしい。だがそのためにはまず愛の言葉の告白と口づけの
おい、なんでそういう日本語だけ知ってるんだ。
Sorry, my wife was coming in here talking to me. I'm like, babe, I'm playing a visual novel, okay? This takes priority here.
策は時折意味不明に不機嫌になるな。突発性ストレス症候群ではないかね。
本当に誰のせいだと。とにかくこれで一通りは回ったと思うけれど、あと行かなくちゃいけないところは。どうかしましたか？
それなのだが、陰猥な空想を楽しんでいる策。
Gosh, you're too much
次にその
sometimes.
呼び方をしたら殺す。
Call me that again and you're dead.
親愛なる策。実を言うと、いささか毒気を抜かれているところなのだよ。
I just love that he's managing to get a good thing with her and she's like opening up to him and then he just has to screw it up every single time.
また面倒そうなことを。
普通の学園だったな。
She seemed to have understood what I meant.
学園生活が初めてのあなたにも普通の学園がわかるの？
It's a good observation. I had no experience with life in a normal school, but I did know something else.
穏やかな日々や時間はどこにでもあるものだよ。
You could find moments of relaxation in war-torn countries and even in the most wretched of worlds. In most cases, they only summoned emptiness and pain. But even so, those who could find those moments were far more fortunate than those who couldn't, no matter where they were. After all, those who were blessed to have it would want more of it.
ここにも同じ空気を感じた。不思議なことに。
あなたには分かりにくいかもしれないけど、ここにいるみんなはようやくそれを得られたの。事情なんてそれぞれで何があったのかなんて私にもわからない。たくさんのことがあったでしょう。普通じゃないというのはそれだけでいろいろなものを引き寄せる。辛いことも悲しいことも。
The sky turned a dark red. The blinding light made Saku squint.
だけどそんな子たちがここでは笑っていられる。私このスクールを愛してる。多くの仲間にとってもここはとても大切な居場所。たとえ何があったって私はこの場所を守ってみせる。
She watched the color of the sky change as if there was something precious within it.
どうかしたの？あなたが神妙な顔するなんて昨日から初めてね。
いや、興味深かっただけだよ。君のことが。
また突然そういうことを。
Dang, so straightforward, my guy. I mean, I appreciate that.
どうかしたのかね。頬が少し赤いようだが。風邪なら医務室に行くことを勧めよう。風邪といえばこんな話もある。インドのとある地方で雇ったポーターが風邪で体調を崩した。その日は早く引き上げたのだが、 結局翌日には寝台で冷たくなっていたよ。伝染性の病だったのだ。
今そんな話をされても。
Yeah, that'd be my question too.
ノーブルを作るスクール、エトワールのインシグニア。半たるものの半たるべし気高き花。どんな人間だろうと思っていたが、君は存外普通の人間なのだね。
それって面白みがないということ？
No, I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's just saying you're a lot more relatable than he thought you'd be, because someone who's like very clearly like, I guess, more noble than you, if we want to like use that word, like it's hard to relate to them if they're in like a higher position, you know. But I think he's trying to give a compliment here.
褒めているのだよ。
Yeah, exactly. It was praise.
どこが？そうは聞こえませんでした。
どうやら気高さや美しさは君の本質とは違うようだ。君はごく普通でいて当たり前であることに心を砕ける人間であるらしい。それは恐ろしいことだ。それは素晴らしいことだ。HMI であるとは異常であるということだろう。異常は正常と乖離する。水と油のように混じれない。この学園にいる者は多かれ少なかれそういう者たちだ。だから彼らは聖域を求める。だが君はその中であまりに普通だ。まるで奇跡のような宝石だ。君もまた異常の中の一人であるのだ。
何が言いたいのかよくわからないのだけれど。
とても地に足のついた人間だということだよ。
そんなことを言われたのは初めてだわ。それも昨日会ったばかりの人に。
No, I think Narita's very observant. Like, he's obviously noticed a lot about her since he's had, I don't know, he's actually spent a lot of time with her. And he's gotten to go through a pretty big event where she had a gun pointed at her face. You know, you get to know someone pretty quickly after events like that.
他人を理解するには時間が必要だ。だが人の真実とは目に現れる。インドのヨーガの達人クシュバルカもそう言っている。
本当に？
もちろん冗談だ。
Wow, okay.
日々を豊かに生きるには適度な笑いが必要とは思わないかね。おとなしさく。普段の君は肩に力が入りすぎてスクエアキューブ。
Thing. That's like, I don't know. He's right. I mean,
四面四角？
日本語は使い慣れないわ。
全面的に違うから。
まあいい。すべてはこれからだ。なすべきことをなす傍ら、学問を楽しみ学ぶとしよう。すべての学問は天満テンプルに通じている。
道真公が聞いたらさぞかし嘆くわね。
Saku invited me to the cafeteria for a break. Feeling grateful and not wanting to be rude, I accepted her offer.
ふむ。この学園では夕食はどうするのかね。
寮の食堂を使うか、こっちの第一校舎の食堂か、どちらかになります。あ、でも今日はノーブルの講義があるから。
Saku opened her mouth to explain, but she was cut off by someone else.
サク。
Ooh, Sorako, how are you doing?
おとなしさん。
Ooh,
こ
Mitori.
ちらは成田さん。みどり、そらこ。
あれ、成田くんも一緒だったんだね。
どうしてそらこが照れるの？
どうしてって言われても、どうしてだろう。
桂木さん、何を頼りのないことを言っていますの？体調でも崩しておられるのではないでしょうね。
I don't know, because I feel like when Narita isn't like groping people and doing things he shouldn't be doing, he's actually a very respectable guy.
授業が終わって以来久方ぶりだね、空子。サクに学園を案内してもらっていたところなのだよ。
それでどうかしたの？二人とも寮に帰ってる時間でしょ。
Soriko made a considerate, somewhat troubled face.
サク、大丈夫だった？授業中ものすごいため息ついたり、おかしな顔してたりしたから心配になって。授業中に？私が？
Yeah, probably.
そうですわ。こんな顔をして空子さんがあなたを心配して落ち着かないものですから、一緒に様子を見に来ましたの。
The Japanese doll-looking girl pulled on the edges of her eyes. I was actually impressed she could do that with her face.
みとりちゃん、よく似てる。そんなにひどい顔してたのか、私は。
Yeah, probably at some of the conversations we were having in the middle of a class.
さぞ面白い顔だったろう。携帯端末のカメラで記録しておけなかったのが残念でならない。
こいつ誰のせいだと。
Saku stopped mid-complaint and recomposed herself before looking at me.
成田くん、まだ紹介していませんでしたので。彼女は7回生の兜山みとり。私たちと同じスクールには6人しかいない。はじめまして、成田真理さん。私、兜山みとりと申します。
She spread her fan and hid her mouth in a very refined manner. Hers was a flowing elegance. There were no hard edges in it, nor any flaws. If mannerisms were all that mattered, she would be above Saku.
朝は玉尾さんがお世話になったとか。
Suddenly, the elegance became a sharp hostility. It was rending, piercing. She didn't touch it or threaten me. She didn't touch or threaten me, yet her presence alone seemed to chip away at my consciousness.
なんとも興味をそそられる人物の多いことだ。
みとりちゃん、せっかく一緒してるのにそんな怖い目しちゃダメだよ。
まったく、あなたは何かと甘いんですから。そんなことで学園の運営は務まりませんわよ。
会計？
そう、理事長の方針でスクールは学生に運営の多くを委ねてて、僕たち5人のエトワールがクラウンとして学園内運営に携わってるんだよ。
Oh, so it was basically ruling practice.
するとクラウンというのは？
スクールを統括する立場のメンバーを指してクラウンと呼称しています。学生会とか自治会のようなものです。
サクが筆頭だから会長、みとりちゃんが副会長、僕が会計で玉緒ちゃんが総務、あとここにはいないけどエルちゃんが書記をやってるんだ。
And freaking Narita is probably the pervert. Eru was probably the small knight I'd seen in class. So the Crowns were not only the top students of the school, but also had actual power.
そうだ、それよりもサクは大丈夫だったの？成田くんに、
What?
おかしなこととかされなかった？
Soriko, I thought you knew me better. Of course Narita would do something. And he already did. That's why he hasn't done anything today. She looked at me apologetically. I noticed this in class, but she was a really considerate soul.
されたといえばされたかも。なんですって？
そうなの？どうしよう、エルちゃんになんて言おう。サクがされちゃったなんて知ったら成田くんのことしに行くかもしれない。
What's being censored here?
はしたないことを言うのはやめなさい。それにそんな変なことされたわけじゃないから。
I think grabbing someone's boobs the first time you meet them is kind of weird, but sure.
どのような？それは変なことを言われたり。
変なこと言われちゃったの？
Soriko, I thought you were on my side of all people.
違います。案内している途中でいろいろと話をしただけよ。
そして私の言葉でサクは陰微な妄想にふけっていたのだ。
Uh-oh. I knew they were going to take that in an interesting way.
違う。
Her stress exploded, and for some reason, she directed her aggression at me. Yeah, for some reason, huh? I could never imagine why. The sages of old would call this a reckless, irrational outburst of anger. No, I think it's perfectly justified. For sure. With Soriko and Mitori's help, Saku finally calmed down. It took about 5 minutes, though.
じゃあ僕たちそろそろ行くね。
成田さん、またいずれ。
楽しみにしていよう。
As the two left,
待って、特に空子、危なっかしいから先に言っておきます。この男にはなるべく関わらないよ。
Saku stopped and warned them while pointing at me like I was dangerous. The pointing didn't seem all that noble to me.
なんというか表現できません。端的に言って変人です。むしろ変態です。どうせなら今日を限りにスクールから叩き出したいくらいだけど。
How rude.
当人を目の前にして気遅れしないその発言、なんとも実に素晴らしいね。
それはさすがにひどいんじゃないかな。成田くんだって僕たちの仲間なんだから。
Thank you, Soraka. That's nice of you to say.
仲間かどうかは、ハローを持てる者 HMI であることは資格があるというだけのこと。私たちの仲間足りえるかは別です。桂木さん、あなたもよくご存知のはずでしょ。
それはそうだけど。
A strange air surrounded us. It wasn't hateful, but it was tense nonetheless.
桂木さんはとかく甘いですから、すぐに仲間扱いしようとされますが、モテるということは等しく義務をもたらすもの。ということは、ニトリは私に賛成。そういうわけでもありませんけれど。小耳に挟んだところによれば、成田さんはあの理事長と時の先生がわざわざ海外から招いた方だとか。めったなことはないでしょうし。
I mean, to be fair, Narita is pretty skilled, at least in
それ
fighting.
を差し引いたとしても興味深いですわ。成田真理、玉尾さんを見事にさばいた器量といい、昼間の講義でのものの言いようといい。
Thank you, Mitori. I think she's a little bit on my side too.
理事
A
長
little
の
bit.
メガネ
She's
違い
interested
か
in me.
もしれないわよ。あの理事長がされることであれば、私に理解できなくても考えは終わりなのでしょう。空子はどう思う？
僕、理事長は苦手だな。
直球ね。まあ私も同感だけど。確かに見た目は怖いですけれど、あれで実直な方とお見受けしておりますわ。
Yeah, you just gotta get to know me.
まあ
But hey, what was that comment about Vivi being scary? I don't look
と
scary.
もかく私はクラウンの副会長として成田真理を感化するわけには参りません。いずれ改めてご挨拶に伺いますわ。
Oh, you're surprisingly nice, Mitori. I like you. With perfect form, she elegantly bowed her head to
よい
me.
とも。私は24時間いつなりとも。
Okay, I feel like this comment's a little bit directed towards something else, but Mitori turned around and left. Sorako stayed behind for a bit and it hesitantly opened her mouth.
何かね。
何か困ったことがあったら相談してね。僕でよかったら力になるから。
It's very nice of you. I might take you up on that.
君にも感謝しよう。桂木空子。
またね、成田くん。
Oh, well, that was a good conversation. I'm glad we were able to come to that understanding. The curtain of night had already fallen outside. The tour was over for the day. We decided to visit the other places on a later date.
言い忘れていましたが、スクールには危険な研究施設も多いので注意をしてください。一般立ち入り禁止のマークが出ている場所には近づかないこと。
I don't know. She kind of talked about this earlier.
安心したまえ。私は一般ではない。
一般よ。頭は一般じゃないけど、一般の学生なの。
もしかすると褒められているのかね。
ああ、もう褒めてない。
ところでサク、あれは何だろうか。
Standing in the hallway, I looked over at the rose garden. There was a glimmering field of flowers beyond the Gothic-style arches. And beyond it was a large forest. It occupied the entire northern half of the school's area. It didn't look like it was put there as an attraction. It was old growth. There's also like some kind of pillar behind it. I thought originally that was like part of the school, but I think that's like another area. A white blade towered above the trees in the distance. It was made of concrete, but it was so sharp that it seemed to be steel. It was a building. The lack of windows made it look like a mere pillar since it was so tall. It was visible every time someone looked at the field of flowers.
研究用のプラントです。ここでは HMI に関して様々な研究が行われていますが、
They had both immense funding and the newest technologies. This place was a true paradise for the
音無
researchers.
君
Orderly footsteps came from ahead of us. They were produced by a man in a suit who was probably a lecturer. I don't know. He looks like he'd probably try to sexually harass somebody, like for real. His gentle smile suited his apparel. It seemed like he would have been better off as an entertainer rather than a researcher.
シカイ先生。
Shishikai sensei. Saku tensed up for a moment. It wasn't like she froze, however. She simply stopped herself from backing away from him. It seemed even though she had people she didn't know how to handle.
音無君君を探していたところだった。前回の試験結果について話をしたいんだが忙しそうだね。
Yeah, so back off, buddy.
はい。成田くんに学園を案内していたところです。
いいとも。私の方は急ぎでもない。明日にしよう。放課後にでもオフィスに来てくれるかな。
Seems a little suspicious.
わかりました。
I like his tie, though, so, you know, I'll trust him for now.
それと成田くんだね。獅子会セントだ。ここの研究員だがマスターとしていくつかの学科も受け持っている。君の噂は早速聞こえてきているよ。
His amiable smile was in sharp contrast with the cold, dissecting gaze he shot at me.
成田真理だ。どこへ行っても話題を独占してしまうのは我ながら心苦しい限りだ。現状ただ一人の男性エトワール。それだけでも興味深いが、今朝の幕開けは随分と波乱含みだったそうじゃないか。夜店先生が珍しくため息をついていたよ。
I would have loved to see that.
君は素晴らしい人材だ。
Okay.
しかし今朝か。
あなたね、今朝玉緒とやり合ったでしょ？
Doesn't even remember. He's like, oh, yeah, that thing.
確かに彼女とコミュニケーションを行ったとも。だが噂になるほどのことだろうか。これはなんとも大物だね。まさにスクールにふさわしい逸材だ。私はこれでも君の今後に期待しているんだ。
Okay.
どうか
I feel like we're gonna have to keep our eye on this guy.
研究員ということはあの窓のない塔で研究を。ああ、あれはプラントなので違う。普段いるのは研究棟の方だよ。プラントの周囲は非常に危険だ。くれぐれも森の奥には立ち入らないように。私がそんなところに行くタイプだ。
Yes, yes, it does.
君は好奇心旺盛そうだ。行くなと言われるほど行ってしまうタイプに見えるが。
That is a great observation.
さて、そろそろ私は行くよ。まだやるべきことが残っているのでね。
Mr. Shishikai disappeared after saying all that in a jovial tone. After seeing him off, I put my hand on my jaw.
さすがはマスター。人を見る目がある。
言っておきますけど、くれぐれもプラントには近づかないように。
音無し作。
何？
もう少し愉快に笑ってみてはどうだね。不機嫌そうな顔ばかりでは藩の藩たる花にふさわしくはない。
I love how he just turns everything on the other person.
ええ、まあ、私もそうしたいのは山々ですけど。
It's like, oh, I'm getting scolded. You know, you should smile more, by the way.
不思議だ。作の言いようではまるで私のおかげで不機嫌になっているように聞こえる。
聞こえるんじゃなくてまるっきりそうよ。
謎が解けた。うん。真実を得る快楽は何者にも代え難いな。
本当にこの男は。いいわね、人生の悩みが少なそうで。
心外だ。私もまた人並みに悩める男。この胸に秘めた思いを抱いて苦悩に魂を震わせているのだよ。
というと、例えば
差し当たっては今夜の夕食を何にするかだ。よろめいて倒れるとは相当に疲れが溜まっているらしい。性的欲求不満かね。
Yes, I'm sure that's what it is, Narita.
誰 がそんな話をしてますか。
I didn't hear Saku's words. I stood completely still and became completely defenseless for a moment.
成田くん、どうかしたの？
Once I returned to my senses, Saku looked at me with worry. From her panicked expression, I assumed that I must have looked terrible. But for when I just had to be seen, I looked at that place again.
サク、探しました。
No, this wasn't the person I just saw. It was the small knight I met in class. Had I been seeing things? For a second, she looked like someone all too familiar. That was impossible, though. I knew better than anyone else the lapis lazuli on my uniform gleamed. The appearance burned into my memories was in no way similar to this girl. They weren't even the same age.
高崎エル。エルは絵をとどめるで合っているのかね。
Now that you mention it, he does have a lapis lazuli on his uniform. I wonder what that's about, because nobody else has something like that.
お前にそう呼ばれる筋合いはありません。成田真理。
エル、やめて。
了解です。サク。
The response seemed natural, but I felt like there was something strange about it. I looked at it and saw her, but felt like there was something fundamental missing. Yet she had no idea. It didn't feel right. I had no idea why, but even though they were nothing alike, it felt like they were very similar. Nothing, not even her stature was similar. The only thing that they shared was that they both were petite. Despite that, my chest was raging so much I had to cover it with my right hand. It was an old wound that time couldn't heal, akin to a burning needle piercing my heart.
無事ですか、サク。
無事というと、彼女は危険な目に遭っているのだろうか。
I wonder if he lost somebody close to him, like a sister or something. Bearing the pain, I pretended to be perfectly fine. I didn't want anyone to see me like that.
てめえ、問題児1号の自覚を持ってほしいです。自分、見に来てよかったです。
The way she looked up at me seemed to sting. It was like a small sword, but it didn't seem sharp. It felt like her hostility was vague and wavering. In the classroom, she felt similar to Saku, but from up close, she looked completely different. In fact, Ero seemed the opposite of both the powerful Saku and refined Mitori. She didn't have much of a presence, really.
成田真理だ。はじめまして。
自分は知っています。サクに迷惑かけやがって。
Hey, hey, hey.
この子
I've tolerated a lot of things, but I will not be called a poop head, okay?
エル、
はい、失言でした。自分、高崎エルです。
Takazaki. Isn't that a kind of food or something? No. Is it? No.
いえ、こいつ相手に言うのは構いません。
いいのかね。多少問題がある気もしなくはないのだが。
エルちゃん、呼ばれきやがった。
Soriko ran up to Ero like a mother worried about a child and wrapped her hands around her neck. Soriko was tall, so she made Ero look a bit like a hermit crab with a load on its back.
重いです、空子。
It's a really weird way of describing that situation, but you know, if that's the way you want to go.
サクはどこかって聞いたらいきなり走り出したから。成田くんたちも迷惑になるといけないし、僕とは向こうにいよ。
そんな子供みたいに扱うのは良くないです。空子はすぐにベタベタするので重たいです。
それはエルちゃんが可愛いから。
この女、悪気ないのがめっちゃうぜ。サク、こいつを案内してたのですか？
I think she about has.
彼女のおかげで私はこのスクールに精通することができた。もはや全てにおいて私は完璧だ。
Oh yes, we know everything.
森の中にある大きな塔のプラント以外の通称は？
わからないとは、とんだ山椒魚野郎です。
Dang. Immediately shot down.
私としたことが
教えていませんから。
サク、それはちょっと。
Yeah, you're supposed to be my guide. What the frick?
おとなしさく。もしかすると私を愛しているのか。
Once again, turns it back on her.
絶対にない。これ以上関わり合いになりたくないなぁと思ったりしますが、エスコートパートナーに任命されているのが残念です。
であれば私も本望だ。サクは私と関わることを許容してくれた。感謝しよう。人にとって最も悲しむべきは無関心だ。
サク、 自分は思うのですが、こやつめは難聴人種です。ラブコメ漫画にでも出てろ。
I don't know, something tells me we're already in one.
エルちゃん、成田くんは6人目のエトワールなんだから仲良くしないと。
自分、それがかなり信用できないというか、ぶっちゃけ理事長の目が腐っているのでは。
玉尾に勝ったのは事実よ。それもハロー抜きで。
本当に抜きなんですか？こやついかさまし臭いです。明日になればクラウン最強の作詞である自分が化けの皮を剥いでやります。
I would love to see that.
ですので今夜のところは先に戻っています。
ええ、気をつけて帰りなさい。僕も先に戻っているから、また夕食の時に。
Dang, we're not even to dinner yet. Arrow left with an uncaring attitude. Her passionate words and Soriko chased after her. I was intrigued by something though.
エルの言った明日というのは
コレオグラフがあります。
Oh yeah, that's where we get to like kind of learn more about our abilities. Interesting. That'll be a good time. Okay, so I know we're not at the end of the chapter here, but I think I'm gonna end it here just because this video is going on for quite a while, and you know, I like to keep it kind of shorter so it's not like a huge chore to try to watch this video in one go. But we have a lot to digest here. I mean, this was a pretty busy first day. We got to learn about our classes, you know, make sure that we stood out, of course, because we always do that. We fought with Tamao earlier. And then we keep accusing Saku of being in love with us now. You know, that's some pretty big, important stuff. But I do gotta say, though, I'm really enjoying this novel a lot more than I thought I would. I wasn't sure how I felt about the main character at first. I liked that he was kind of eccentric. And then he started, like, doing some stuff that was kind of weird. And I was like, okay, I don't agree with that, my guy. But, like, he's actually, like, brought some interesting conversations. And he's someone I actually, like, enjoy listening to. When he's talking, he has some, like, cool ideals and thoughts on things. So I'm actually enjoying his character a lot more than I thought I would. And I'm also getting to know some of the other characters too, which is nice, and seeing like their different personalities. So I'm enjoying it. I'm going to continue playing, but I will be doing that in the next episode. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one.